Download our app today and enjoy tackle-busting benefits with great odds, more markets and same-game multi every NRL match at Palmerbet. Gamble responsibly. For Gamblers' Help, call 1-800-858-858.
Welcome everyone to episode 430 of Fergo and Freak. I'm your host. I am the Glorious League Freak and we are doing our round 23 preview thanks to our wonderful sponsors at Palmerbet. Remember, you can get all of the best rugby league betting odds at palmerbet.com. Go over there, sign up for their service. They've been wonderful sponsors to us this year. And as always, gamble responsibly. Now, before we start that, I need some housekeeping to do. I lost a bet on the weekend to Mofo Storm fan, and as a result, I have a couple of things that I am forced to say. Let me say that again. I am forced to say these things against my will. Thanks, Mofo Storm fans. So the first thing I have to say is this. A Matthew Elliott coached Panthers team would have won that game. See how I'm forced to say these things? Like things that are outside the bounds of reality. The second thing I'm supposed to say, and this might be even worse, I'm switching allegiance and now supporting the Poms at the Rugby League World Cup. Just disgusting. The disgusting things that Mofo Storm made me say for this bet. Now, that's everything I've got to say for the bet, thank goodness, because I don't think I could keep that up for another episode. So, now, let me get into the preview itself. So, round 23, palmerbet.com. Our first game coming up, South Sydney Rabbitohs. They've been on fire against the Penrith Panthers, who are missing a lot of players still. The South Sydney Rabbitohs are favourites on palmerbet.com at $1.58 compared to the Panthers, $2.40. The Panthers have a 4.5 point head start. That might be the first head start they've had this year. You can get $1.90 on that, whereas the South Sydney Rabbitohs with a 4.5 point handicap are also at $1.90. Look, it's hard to say that the Panthers are going to win this one. You know, they're missing a lot of players and Souths are on fire. If the Panthers do end up winning this game, it would be huge because it would just show that, like, you know, even with the players they have available, they're still pretty set, especially defensively. That's what you want to see out of this Panthers team all the time, is that their defense is good. It's going to be really tested here against South. There was a little bit of a issue with Latrell Mitchell. He had a little bit of I think it was a hammy issue or his groin or something earlier in the week. They said that he's going to play. We will wait and see on that. If it was me, I wouldn't play him. You know, I think he's way too important to be available in the finals. So, yeah, I wouldn't play him. But we'll see. We'll find out. That's why they play the games. Now, the second game of the round is the North Queensland Cowboys taking on the New Zealand Warriors. The Cowboys are at home. On palmerbet.com, the Cowboys are heavy favourites at $1.12, whereas the New Zealand Warriors are $6 outsiders. The New Zealand Warriors have a 19.5 point head start. That's incredible. You can get $1.90 on that, whereas with the 19.5 point handicap, you can get $1.90 on the Cowboys. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think the Cowboys will win. I'm just thinking about how well the Cowboys will win. I'm hoping the Cowboys win and cover the point spread because they kind of need to... I guess I want to see them really step forward as a proper premiership threat. And part of me feels as though they've got to where they are at just with consistency, which is not a bad thing. You know, you need that as a top side. But I want to see them really put the sword to someone. And they've got a chance to do that here against the New Zealand Warriors. The Warriors, look, their season is, you know, it's ending in a bit of a sad way, I think. They're looking towards next year. I saw a press release just earlier where they said that they're going to take part in the junior competitions in the New South Wales Cup next year. So that's good. I believe it was Jersey Flegg and SG Ball. So that's good to see. But yeah, the Warriors, I mean, this season's been a write-off, as has their last couple of seasons. So they're just doing their best. Next up, we have the Brisbane Broncos taking on the Melbourne Storm. The Brisbane Broncos are outsiders according to Palmerbet.com. They are in the head-to-head $2.51, whereas the Storm are at $1.50. The Brisbane Broncos have the 5.5 point head start at $1.90, whereas the Melbourne Storm have the 5.5 point handicap also at $1.90. Hard to go past the Storm this week. They had a really good win last week against the Penrith Panthers. I know they've got a lot of injuries at the moment, but still, it's they should get the points here. The Broncos, I do think of them as being better than I think a lot of other people do. They could make a real game of this one. We'll have to see. But, it's the Storm, and I think the Storm will be wanting to ramp things up coming towards the finals. We'll wait and see how they turn up in this game. This game is normally a pretty good game, though. It's always one of those games where, you see something pretty good happening. So make sure you watch this one. The game following that, we have the Parramatta Eels at home to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. The Eels are favourites according to Palmerbet.com. They're at $1.35 in their head-to-head, whereas the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs are outsiders at $3.25. The Bulldogs have a 9.5 point head start, which is very, very juicy if you ask me. You can get them at $1.90, whereas with the 9.5 point handicap, the Parramatta Eels are also at $1.90. What do we think of the Eels right now? I mean, they would have to lose all of their games to miss the finals. That's a big ask. I'm going for the Bulldogs in the head-to-head in this one. I think they can cover the spread. And with the 9.5 point head start, I think that's money in the bank. So that's where I'd put my money. Now, with this game, I've got to say, I do wonder if the Parramatta Eels are going to grow from having some of the key players out, especially Mitch Moses. Sometimes you see that with teams that are there or thereabouts. They'll miss some key players, and because everyone else has to step up, it just solidifies the team a little bit so that when their key players do come back into the contest, they have sort of grown in their absence. It's going to be interesting to see how they approach this game. I think we'll have almost a sellout crowd at this game. And yeah, I'm tipping the Bulldogs. I just think that they can get the money here. Their attack is, been great since Trent Barrett left. And yeah, I don't know. There's something about them at the moment. I really like how they're playing. And the Eels, I feel as though they could just let everything fall apart really quickly at this point of the season. Now, on to the next match. The Manly Warringah Seagulls host the Cronulla Sharks. The Manly Warringah Seagulls are $4.50 outsiders on Palmerbet.com in the head-to-head, whereas the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks are at $1.20. The Manly Warringah Seagulls have a 14.5 point head start at $1.90, whereas with the 14.5 point handicap, the Cronulla Sharks are also at $1.90. This is similar to the North Queensland Cowboys for the Sharks. The Manly Seagulls are missing a heap of players. Their season has really just gone topsy-turvy since the Pride jersey round or whatever that was. And I want to see the Cronulla Sharks really put Manly to the sword in this game. The Cronulla Sharks actually have a really, really poor record, I believe, in when they go to Brookvale Oval. So it'd be good for them to get a massive win in this game. I think you could take them with the 14.5 point handicap and they will still cover that. So yeah, and I do. I want to see them put up a big score. Next game, the Sydney Roosters. We know this is going to be a big score. The Sydney Roosters on Palmerbet.com take on the West Tigers. The Sydney Roosters are at $1.07 in the head-to-head, whereas the West Tigers are out to $9. The West Tigers have a 22.5 point handicap. They have a 22.5 point head start on Palmerbet.com. That's at $1.90. And with the 22.5 point handicap, the Sydney Roosters are also at $1.90. The Roosters should put the broom through them. It should be a massive scoreline, this one. The Roosters have had a really weird season. It's been a little bit inconsistent. They have dropped games against poor sides this year. I don't expect that to happen in this game, though. I think that they will just smash the West Tigers. I wouldn't be shocked if the Tigers didn't win another game this season. They're trying to avoid the wooden spoon, obviously. And, when they face opponents that are in the finals, and the Roosters, keep in mind, the Roosters have to win this game. Those teams at the bottom of the top 8, they've got to keep winning because I think the Canberra Raiders are snapping at their heels. So, yeah, the Roosters should win this one and win it big. And that'll help their for and against as well. I don't know that they've got too many problems with their for and against, but it's always good to bag some the points differential in these type of games. Next, we have the St. George Illawarra Dragons hosting the Gold Coast Titans. The Titans season is just going from bad to worse. On Palmerbet.com, the St. George Illawarra Dragons are favourites at $1.60, whereas you can get the Gold Coast Titans at $2.35. The Titans have a 4.5 point head start on Palmerbet.com. You can get that at $1.90, whereas the 4.5 point handicap, the St. George Illawarra Dragons are also at $1.90. I had to tip the Dragons. Their season is finishing a bit so-so, but so-so is better than the disaster that is the Titans this year. I just think the Titans, they're waiting to get to the end of the year. I expect Holbrook to be sacked probably during Mad Monday, to be honest with you. He's been a disastrous signing as a coach for them. It's been pretty sad, his time there at the club. On to the last game of the round, and we see the Newcastle Knights hosting the Canberra Raiders up there in Newcastle. On Palmerbet.com, the Newcastle Knights are $3.50 in the head-to-head, whereas the Canberra Raiders are at $1.31. There's been a little bit of money there at $1.31. The Canberra Raiders have a handicap of 10.5 points. You can get $1.90 on that, whereas with the 10.5 point head start, the Newcastle Knights are also at $1.90. The Knights are done. They've had some off-field issues, as you well know, from the previous podcast that we did. Kurt Mann and Callum Ponga, they obviously were doing whatever they were doing in the toilets up there in Newcastle. Who knows what it was? Don't really care. But then they had another couple of players. One of them was Bradman Best. I can't remember who the other player was. But they've been stood down for some sort of disciplinary reasons. I'm not sure what they are. I don't know that it has come out in the media just yet. I've got to say, Bradman Best, he's turning into a really poor man's Dane Carlaw, in that physically he has all of the tools you would want to be a really good player, but injuries and just a lack of application is seeing him turn into a player you can't rely on. And he is also erratic. He makes a lot of mistakes at the moment as a player. He needs to think about where he wants his career to be, because he could be a player that is a representative player, or he could be a player that just, no one's thinking about in 3 or 4 years' time, and maybe isn't even in the NRL. He might be over in Super League by that stage. So it's, he needs to get his act together. I think that the Canberra Raiders will absolutely whip the Knights in this game. I think the Knights are just done. I think they're waiting for the end of the season. I know the Knights have said Adam O'Brien is their coach going forward beyond this season. There's a feeling that maybe they can't afford to sack him, but I'd be absolutely shocked if they keep him around for 1 minute longer than they need to. Get to the end of the season. Find a coach that you can have long-term going forward. Get a coach that's got a track record, please. And don't get a coach that any of the Johns brothers say will be a great coach. If they just stick to those things, just get Michael Maguire up there. Get Jeff Tuvey there. Get somebody with a track record that that they know what they're doing when they're a head coach. That's all you need to do, Newcastle. That's some free advice from the Glorious League Freak. But yeah, I think they'll get whipped up there in Newcastle, and the Raiders will make that top 8 race really, really interesting. We'll see how that one goes. Now, it's only a very short episode. Andrew was going to be joining me for this one yesterday, but unfortunately, he had some scheduling issues really late in the game. Life gets in the way sometimes. I've always got to tell Andrew, it's all good, man. Like, we're not killing ourselves to do the podcast. We get these episodes out all the time. So, and I know that you as listeners, you appreciate the fact that you get real stuff from us. You don't get a made-up radio show with segments and stuff like that. You get two dudes. And yesterday, one of the dudes had something to deal with. It's nothing, serious. He just, had life getting away. So, that's the end of this podcast. It's only a quick one. It's our betting one. We're going to follow up with a better, bigger, fatter, thicker, more girthy podcast in the next few days. Give you something a little bit extra to chew on. And I know that, listeners like Julie, she'll love something like that. So thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for being a loyal listener. Thank you for subscribing. Tell your friends about the podcast. And as always, we want to thank Palmerbet.com, the best betting odds in rugby league, and they've been fantastic to us as a sponsor. Absolutely fantastic. So if you go to them, if you've got betting that you do on rugby league, go to palmerbet.com, sign up for their service. It's a great service. And they don't just do rugby league betting, they do sports betting and horse racing, greyhounds, all of the stuff you want to bet on. Palmerbet.com covers it. Thank you once again for listening, and we'll catch you soon.
Palmerbet with the big don't argue. Punters will love that. Download our app today and enjoy tackle-busting benefits with great odds, more markets and same-game multi every NRL match at Palmerbet. Gamble responsibly. For Gamblers' Help, call 1-800-858-858.